Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Sanderlanche podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about chapters 34 through 36 of Oathbringer by Brandon Sanderson. In these chapters, Dalinar has a little visit with Queen Fen of Thelana, and then Bridge 4, we get our first Bridge 4 perspective, and several interesting little bits popping up in there. I think is it all from Sigzel's perspective in this chapter? I think we get some interesting stuff from him there, learning about how Bridge 4 runs these days. And then we get another flashback from Dalinar. This one a little less action-packed than some of our previous ones, but I think maybe it's we were ready for young Dalinar to calm down a little bit. Anyway, I'm Data, and with me this week is
Jamie,
Jack,
and Joe. I'm back, baby.
Yep, we're all together again for the first time in forever. No, it hadn't been that long.
see, I was going to go with together again.
Damn it, I was about to do that.
Classic.
That is classic, yep. They just added Frozen the musical to Disney Plus, and the family was talking about that earlier, so I think that's why Frozen song popped into my head. But
we tried to convince our eldest to watch that family movie night, and she wasn't having a bar of it.
That's for the best. We watched
Wicked instead.
Oh, that's much
instead went
better.
for Wicked. And I don't know, how many people have seen Wicked, but in the Dancing Through Life song,
Oh,
and
Jesus Christ, yeah.
when Fiyero is, all over the books and doing it, look, honestly, it made me cringe when he stepped on the books too. But our eldest decided to tell us how disappointed she was that he was making bad choices. So
That is bad
I was
choice.
like, it's
That is a bad
not
choice.
normally what people take away from that scene, but I see your point. Yep.
I mean, the whole song is kind of about him making bad choices. So, yeah, that's good on you, kiddo. We have an issue with my little ones stepping on books sometimes. Actually, just stepping on things. They always want to step on things.
Yeah. My son likes to eat books. He likes to put the corners in his mouth, and I have to be like, "Hey, stop."
Our cat does that, and it drives me up the wall.
Yeah, I mean, a cat may be a little more understandable than a child, but sure.
The cat is just like, this is my book now. Okay, yeah, we've gone afield before the opening even, so good on us. Hang on to something, everybody. The Sanderlanche is about to begin.
Yearnings intertwined, the golden age in ashes once again. Under stirring stars, in the burning shards, kindle fragments of the falling rain. So look to the break of dawn, to the break of dawn. Stronger together.
So yeah, 3 chapters. And Joe, if you want to touch on your thoughts on some of the previous chapters when you do yours, feel free. I'm sure that people would be interested. But what did you guys think of these 3 chapters?
I liked the into the vision. I thought that was kind of cool, and to see from like sort of a different perspective than last time. Not so much perspective, but different events. It wasn't just a hash out of the same vision happening the exact same way. And it was kind of cool to see that, well, what Dalinar did in his vision impacted the vision, even if the core message still happened. Like certain, Stormfather says certain events are supposed to still happen, certain things are supposed to be said. It's kind of one of those choose your own mystery, direction type things. It's like you always end up somewhere pre-designed, but you've got a little bit of control how it happens. So that was cool. I did enjoy the conversation, and with Queen Fen, just like, this is now you're in my dream. Like, dude, send me a letter. Like, you don't need to talk to me. So I'm really looking forward to what the fallout of that is when they next make contact. But that could be a really cool way for Dalinar to reach out to people. Some will be more receptive than others, and even if she wakes up and goes, wow, that was a really weird dream, he now is like, okay, I know how to get through to you. You need passion. You need anger, you need feeling, not diplomacy. So that's I really liked that. The Bridge 4 perspective, I think, worked. I like Sigil. It's nice to see into some of these characters that we've known for a long time. Just it's not necessarily about their perspective specifically about what's happening at the time, but just who they are as people and like their beliefs and their background. And that was quite fun. I thought it was interesting too to see how Kaladin is written from someone else's perspective, like not one of our core people, but Bridge 4 who will look up to him. Kaladin almost sounded perky, which is just not who we know Kaladin to be. He's quite introspective and, there's 500 things going on in his brain at any one time. And I felt like a different character to me. So I kind of look forward to seeing a little bit more of that through different people's views. And that was a lot of fun. And the flashback, yeah, it was a flashback, not a huge amount going on, I guess. Realistically, a few little tidbits here and there that were interesting. Obviously, another challenge being presented. So I like seeing him and Evie together, and that introduction to the old magic as well. That obviously she wanted him to go and do this, and eventually he goes, but very, very different circumstances. So I don't love all of the flashbacks. I do find them generally pretty interesting, but I'm looking forward to seeing where Dalinar's flashbacks go to really give us that piece that we're missing.
I know what you mean. There's definitely we're still missing the piece of Dalinar in his evolution, maybe several pieces, but
yeah.
Somebody in the Discord mentioned that I have to point out to you guys that a couple episodes ago, Dak and Jamie, I asked you guys when Dalinar first came up with the idea to bring these other people into one of these visions. I was like, we've seen a bunch of these visions. Which one do you think he would bring someone into to try to convince them or try to talk to them? And Jamie was like, well, it definitely wouldn't be that one where he was like fighting monsters and things. And of course, that's exactly the
proof
one.
that we. Yeah, if you ever needed proof that we're not reading ahead, there it is.
So they were like, you got to remind them of that when we get there. I guess it worked out. I mean, that wouldn't have been my first thought either, but it seems to have gone okay.
And I guess the way Dalinar explained it too is that, this one had the biggest impact on him.
Mm.
So like, yeah, okay, that checks out. It does make sense as to why that one was chosen.
Yeah. I don't know that if he's going to... our old buddy Gox, who's now Emperor of the Azish or whatever, if he was going to bring the kid into one, I don't know that that's the one I would pick either, even after it was successful with Queen Fen, but I guess we'll see if that happens. Also, you made a good point about, like, we've always seen the Bridgemen, well, almost always from Kaladin's perspective, so seeing from their own perspective gives us a different look at Kaladin, but also kind of at each other, because they act probably a little differently when they're hanging out with each other than with Kaladin, who they all kind of admire and look up to. So yeah, it makes for some interesting stuff. And I think that'll be a fun perspective in this section for us to go back to periodically.
Yeah.
Although Lopin's sticking to the ceiling and like being rude, he'd do that to Kaladin too. So you can only I don't know that Lopin is different with anybody. He's just the Lopin.
Always the Lopin.
It works for him, I guess.
He mouthed off in front of Dalinar and all the High Princes that one time.
It's true. Yep. He doesn't care. It's funny because even when we see Bridge 4 not from Kaladin's perspective, like we've seen them from Shallan's or Dalinar's every once in a while, but it's always like nobody else remembers their names. It's like, oh yeah, there's one of those Bridgemen, whichever one the Horn Eater one, or the one with gray at his temples or whatever. Like nobody else bothers to remember.
I'm sure Adolin does. He seems to make a point of knowing his people.
Yeah, I could see that. We've never... I guess we have seen some of them from Adolin's perspective when they were guarding him during the fight, and he definitely did know their names. That's a good point.
Yeah, like good. Like these chapters were fine. Like the vision stuff was interesting. Yeah, like I also did not think that this would be a valid vision for Dalinar to establish contact with someone, but hey, it seems to have worked out, so good for him. Stormfather's getting a bit testy, which is doesn't really bode well.
You ever not, though?
Yeah, true. I don't know. Something about it just seemed a bit more than normal towards the end of this chapter. Yeah, and now that we know what those things were, I'm just like, oh, the Midnight Essence. Okay, now I get it for the smoke monsters. So cool. Just fighting an unmade invasion. That was interesting. Yeah, I like the Bridge 4 stuff. I like Sigil a lot. So seeing inside his head was like really interesting. I'm still don't know what to make of Lynn, this scribe who keeps hanging around. Is like, oh, like I don't want to just be any old average, folk in your army. I wanna be a Radiant. How do I do that? And I'm like, I don't know how to feel about someone who's that eager to. No, I mean, I guess like they're seen as like the paragons of virtue and whatnot, so people aspire to be them. But I don't know, something about the way she was approaching it just sort of made me feel a bit. I've been a bit suspicious of her in the past, so I'm not really sure how to approach her now. But yeah, but like I like Sigil's conversations with Kaladin. I liked how he tried to tell a story and just blew it, even though it's like this was my job. Hoyd himself gave me this title, and I still suck at it. What's going on? So yeah, I feel for the guy. And then the flashback, like it was nice to have a Dalinar flashback that wasn't action packed or it didn't have political intrigue for him to turn his nose up at. It was just him, his wife, and then eventually his brother. And then finally we get confirmation from his brother that, hey, young Dalinar was awful, but he wasn't a complete monster. He didn't kill the child the narrative sort of left it coy about whether or not he'd done that. So, bright spot in all that for young Dalinar. I appreciated that.
How low does the bar have to be for young Dalinar before you're like, good job not killing that kid, man?
Yeah. What is it? The not as big of a jerk as you could have been award.
Yeah, yep. But it is weird that you're like, yeah, like she feels so proud of him in that moment, and you kind of do too. You're like, hey, maybe this is the beginning of the Dalinar that we see in the future. Got to start somewhere.
Not only that, but also like it's the first time we see it, but it means that all this time since that moment, like he has had flashes of morality and like trying to do the right thing. So even though we haven't seen it demonstrated in his chapters, it has been there.
It's a good point. Yeah. And as far as Lynn goes, it does seem a little bit weird. I think at this point I've always read it as she maybe is not a big fan of the gender norms in Alethi society. Like she's doing a scout job in Dalinar's army, which I don't know that we've seen other women in that sort of position. So she's already sort of like doing a manly job. I feel like this society probably sees it as, and we know that they have very rigid rules about what women can do and what men can do. So I've always felt like this is her seeing her opportunity to like, I can be more, this is the opportunity to get away from being restricted to what women are supposed to do.
That's a point. I hadn't considered it from that perspective. I think I've mentioned it before. I've been suspicious of just like how much she's shown up all of a sudden to be all over Bridge 4, and she was clinging to Shallan at that early chapter as well, asking, hey, how do I become a Radiant? How do I become a Radiant? So natural inbuilt suspicion for me is just going, it's like, are you a Taravangian plant? Are you or from one of the other dozens of secret societies over here trying to gain powers for untoward ends? Like, my natural paranoia and suspicion have kicked in on this woman, which may be entirely unjustified, but we'll see.
It's probably a bit of both.
You're like, she's a spy, but also she might be okay.
But also, she just doesn't want to be the secretary anymore. She wants to be, the high-powered lawyer in the building.
It's hard to blame her for
I
that.
get it. Yeah.
Single female lawyer.
Lynn is single female lawyer. Yeah, okay. Now I'm trying to be like, which secret society is she in? That it could be interesting because we talked about last week. Jamie kind of brought up that from the conversation we saw between Syl and Kaladin, like somebody could get an honor spren but have a very different view on like right and wrong than Kaladin does, and it would still be valid. So if she is some sort of spy, but she can attract her own honor spren, it could be a very challenging thing.
Yeah, I mean, look at Amaram. He seems convinced that he's doing the right thing, even though he's a complete tosspot. Yeah. So, yeah, if he attracted an honor spren, he's so convinced of his own. Like, there's no room for doubt in that guy's heart, even though there really should be.
It's true.
So.
There really should be. I hope Amaram doesn't attract a spren. That would suck.
Yeah. But like it's also hard to say, oh, which secret society would this person belong to, because we don't know all of them yet. We don't even know
True.
all the Knights Radiant orders yet. There's so much going on this planet. It's like we know there are these things out there, but we don't know what they are.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Man, what a set of chapters that I had to read all for today, because since I knew I wasn't going to be on the show, I did not read the chapters, so I read a lot of stuff today. So I'm going to kind of go through it how I remember it, and if I miss something, well, that's too bad. So from what I remember, I started with Shallan. She's trying to figure some stuff out. She finally gets her bros to help her out, and they're doing like a full like espionage type thing, which was pretty fun. And eventually that leads to them cornering a shadow goop monster, which was cool. I liked all of that. It is a little strange to me that the resolution to that section was just, well, we pushed Goop Monster deeper in, so it's okay now. Everybody be cool. Goop Monster's just gonna hide down in the depths, the bowels of the tower, and we're okay with that.
It's the Balrog now.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it could come up at any time, but it probably won't, because it's kind of scared of me or something. But no, even though that was kind of silly, like climactic wise with this Goop Monster thing, I did like all of the internal stuff going on with Shallan. I think it was cool. It was good to kind of see her kind of working through some stuff, because I think we all know she needs to. And there's still a lot of work to be done, but she's making progress. And then down our flashbacks where they finally like take the throne for good. That's all good stuff. It kind of fleshes out his character a little bit more. Luckily, in this section we got a down our flashback where it was like, oh yeah, remember that kid we thought he killed? It turns out he didn't kill that kid, but then that kid became a problem. But it was kind of a nice moment where his wife's like, kind of like, it's kind of weird because she should probably expect even more, but she's kind of like, oh, you didn't kill that kid, you're so wonderful. So it's a little strange, but yeah. And then Kaladin leaving the Parchment finally and coming back, and then I did like the way that Brandon wrote this, where it's like, oh, I already know that Bridge Boy came back. It's like, no, Yasna's back, and then that's the end of the part. You're like, oh dang! So that was a nice little ending there. I don't know where you guys stopped, if that was a cliffhanger for you guys, or if you kept going through the interludes in that section. I don't know how you guys read that, but I got to read it all at one go. So I was like, oh man, the part's over, and now I got to read these interludes. The interludes, the first one was kind of weird because it was just like, this guy doesn't seem like a super great dude. He's just always like, oh man, how unfortunate, or whatever his line was. And then the other two were a little more interesting, so I enjoyed those. And then we get to this section of chapters.
Pause for a second. Like, were you surprised by the death of Eshonai as revealed in that last interlude?
That's a good question, and I should have addressed that a little bit more. I was a little surprised, but at the same time, it makes sense for the direction that the story's going in. But to say I was expecting her to be dead, I was kind of expecting her not to be dead. Like, I don't know, something about when she fell at the end had a bit of finality to it. But at the same time, I think as readers, we're supposed to be kind of in the shoes of her sister at that point. It's like, oh, I thought I was going to find her alive. She's dead. So I think that was kind of a cool way to do that with the internalization of it from her sister's perspective. It's like, yeah, as readers, we thought she might have been alive too, but turns out she's not. So it was kind of a cool way to do that. I think it was well written, I think. Yeah, it's sad because, Eshonai seemed like a cool character. Her sister seems not cool. So
yeah,
I'm more interested at the end of that section with the little spren thing that crawled out. I'm like, what is that thing? Because the way it's described, I don't think we've seen a spren or a creature described that way, little white ball of fire. So I'm interested to know if that, will play in more later for sure. And then, yeah, these section of chapters, Shallan, reunites with Yasna, and it's like, I don't know what Shallan was expecting, but to me, Yasna did the Yasna thing. And I think Shallan was like, oh, but I've been through so much, and you're still you. It was kind of that weird, like, I really admired you. I thought you were gone, and now you're back, and you're still the same. And I've changed, and I think Shallan's kind of internalizing this, like, I've changed a lot. Doesn't seem like Yasna's changed that much. And so that was kind of a interesting meeting, them getting back together. And then yeah, this section I liked this. I liked that the perspective was from Sigil, or at least a member of Bridge 4. I think that was kind of a cool way to do that. And I talked about the flashback already a little bit, but I'm excited to see where we're going. I mean, now potentially we have all our major good guy players back, and then yeah, the whole like, I want her in this vision that I had. It's like, yeah, he picked a pretty rough vision to thrust her into, but I guess that was his point. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. Excited to read more. Excited to be back.
Yeah, so you brought up one thing that I think we touched on just briefly last time, but basically we've kind of reset. Like you said, all of our heroes are together now, right? And so what does that mean? Like, what do we do going forward? What does Kaladin do at this point? Like, maybe this is more of a predicaments thing, but it's like, what? We're all here, but the only thing that we really have that someone's working on right now is Dalinar's working on these other monarchs, right? So, like, what does that mean for everybody?
Yeah, and I think Kaladin even questions that in this chapter, because Sigil asks some really good questions, like, so wait, do we still have fealty to these people, or like, what is our job? And Kaladin's kind of like, well, we're for everybody, and he's like, yeah, but what does that mean? Like, can we be ordered around by Dalinar Kholin, and we have to do whatever he says? And Kaladin's like, crap, that's a good question. I'll figure that out later. Let's move on right now. So they're kind of in a weird place, because yeah, what is Yasna's goal, right? Like, is Yasna's goal to study Urithiru and try to figure out, what can they take from the past that will help them during this conflict? And then Dalinar's rushing around trying to unite everyone, and Kaladin's just kind of like, I'm a Radiant now, but like, I also don't want to do everything I'm told, or do I? I don't know. So yeah, it's kind of a weird place that we're all in.
It is a weird place, yeah. So I guess we shall see. I guess we know that Elokar has a plan for what he wants to do. I kind of forgotten about that. Okay. Well, let's get into these chapters then, y'all. We started with 34, which was Resistance. Yeah, so last time we read like the last couple of chapters of part 1, and then all of the interludes, and then the first chapter of part 2. So it's kind of like a crossover sort of thing. So we found out Yasna was back, and then it was like, oh, okay, and then moved in. But by then, I'd already told them that, like, part 2, one of the perspective characters was Yasna, so I think that it probably wasn't as much of a surprise as it could have been.
Yeah.
But this is, I kind of like the interludes in this section. Last time, we just got the first one, like, Dearest Saphandrius, I received your communication. And then this one starts with, I noticed its arrival immediately, just as I noticed your many intrusions into my land. So it's, okay.
some interesting shade flexes going on,
right?
Well, I did throw the question out there an episode or two ago. It's like, who is the mail carrier between Hoyd and all these people he's like writing letters to, and who are writing letters back to him? And apparently, Hoyd is setting up a mail drop himself. It's like, you intruded on my land and left me a letter again.
Yeah,
jackhole.
He just has like dead drops where he drops mail. He's just like, here, I sent you some mail. And like, where is it? I don't know. Figure it out.
Yeah, that's a really good. Hold on, I'm curious if anyone has asked, if anyone had asked that at this point.
Has that never been confirmed by Brandon? Like, oh yeah, this is how they send mail back and forth.
Well, no, I want to make sure that if I say something, it's something that like Brandon has talked about before now, and not something that's going to come up in a different book or something. Okay, someone asked him in 2016, which would have been, is that before or after this one? I think it's after this one. Oathbringer date. When did that come out?
Oathbringer really did it this time?
Okay, so that is actually just before Oathbringer came out. Somebody asked, how are the letters between Hoyd and Frost getting delivered? And Brandon says, that's a read and find out. So,
okay.
There we go.
In these epigraphs, like Hoyd sneaking onto people's lawn.
So apparently it will be revealed at some point.
You have to imagine, like, Ruin got out of the well and starts like amassing his power, and it's like, all right, let's see what's on this planet. Let's go find out this thing where I left such and such a long time ago. Flips it over, whatever he's looking for isn't there, and it just says Hoyd was here. Ha 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 ha. P.S. Ruin is a dick.
Just he just fires it out of a t-shirt cannon. It's fine.
Here's another one from 2019, so I guess after this book. But someone says, so I was looking at the letter sent by Hoyd to Frost and vice versa, and I wondered how he sent them. Like, is there some sort of Cosmere postal service in the cognitive realm? And Brandon says, he's not using it, but there is active trade between several planets and a version of a postal service. So there is that. He's not using that.
Yeah, it's Moogles, guys.
Oh, it should totally be Moogles. That's some Final Fantasy IX shit right there.
Yeah, just delivering letters like it ain't no thing.
Of course, they're in the game. They're like, hey, will you deliver this letter for me?
Yeah, that's true. You know, now that I think about that, that whole Moogle delivery system's BS. Because, yeah, they're constantly telling you to cart the letters around. It's like, dude, isn't that your job?
Well, that's because
that's
like,
what I have you for.
The postal sorting thing is like broken for most of the
Right.
game. You have to fix it late game.
Yeah.
Because there's a monster in there. Or
But
something.
even
I don't know.
after that, they're still having you deliver letters. I mean,
Mm.
it's like they're just sitting around eating Koopo nuts, being like, forget you.
I mean, if I get somebody else to do my job while I stand around and eat some Koopo nuts, sure. Why not?
What do you think a Koopo nut tastes like?
I don't know. Probably. Also, I think in Final Fantasy IX, I think Koopo nuts specifically make them get pregnant. So maybe that's not the.
It's an aphrodisiac.
Yeah, maybe. Anyway.
Wait.
Before we
One
go-
more question about Koopo nuts. Do you think they come from a tree, like a real nut, or do you think it comes you think it's actually like a legume?
Huh. Hold on. Let's see if there's anything on the internet about this.
Yeah. Aren't you guys glad I'm back?
So this says in Final Fantasy IX, Koopo nuts are a type of plum that is native to the churning mists.
Okay.
So, all right. I
guess,
would not have thought plum.
Yeah, so like a plum. So I guess it comes from a tree.
Yeah, I guess. Huh.
Yeah. Secrets revealed.
Yeah, could be different in different games, I guess, also.
I don't know.
Okay. This Final Fantasy. Okay, chapters. Where I lost it for a second. There we go. So our chapter starts out with the Stormfather being like, "It's time. The storm has reached Thelana, so let's get her." And the Stormfather's like, "Okay, where do you want me to put her in this vision?" And he's like, "Well, the same place I was." And it's like, "Okay, where do you want to be?" And Dalinar wants to be just like there. Like, can you just stick me there and let me talk to her? And the Stormfather's like, "No, that's not how it works. You have to take someone's role." He's like, "Okay, fine. Just pick somebody. If possible, though, make Fen see me as me and me see her as her so that we can talk. And also, can you let me have my sword?" And the Stormfather's kind of annoyed. He's like, "Yeah, fine, whatever." And then we get like a weird, Dalinar takes this very philosophical thing where the Stormfather's like, all things have a soul. And like when a vase is broken, it might die in the physical realm, but for a time, its soul remembers what it was. And they get into a whole thing, which kind of goes with some of the stuff. Like the most simple explanation of the three realms, I always go back to the Emperor's Soul, where she talks about having to like convince a soul that it wants to be something else with her soul stamps. And so it kind of makes sense with that. And so where Dalinar ends up is he is one of the Radiants who shows up towards the end of the vision that he had previously. He's the female Radiant. And he's flying through the air with another Radiant who's like, okay, that's a Windrunner, clearly. And he wonders, like, the Radiant was wearing plate in the vision. Why am I not wearing plate? Maybe it's just like how the Stormfather is making me see myself? And so he asked the guy, like, hey, I think something's wrong with my armor. I can't make my helmet do a thing. And the guy's like, you're not wearing armor. You haven't summoned that yet. You had to dismiss it so I can lash you. So we learned in a previous, back in the first book, I think, Seth couldn't lash someone while they were wearing shard plate. So that made it tougher when he fought shard bearers. He couldn't even lash himself while he was wearing shard plate, which is why he never wore any. So I guess that is also true of these like Radiants in the past.
So shard plate is aluminium because it can't be affected by investigation. No, not going down that hole.
And so the guy's basically like, just be ready to back me up against the Midnight Essence and use regrowth on any wounded. And Dalinar's trying to pry for more information, and the Stormfather's like, yeah, these aren't real people with like real memories and stuff. This is just a recreation. He's not going to give you much more information, and poking at it will just, he says, further pressing will merely reveal the thinness of the facade. And then he thinks, I gotta get like Navani and Yasna in here, let them like really pick this stuff apart. Like the smart people. Let them have a go.
So the thing that Stormfather says not to do, I need to get my wife and my niece in here to do exactly that.
Well, at the very least, like he can, instead of describing like the buildings and things so they can try to figure out what time period it is, like they can just see them.
Yeah.
Or get Shalon in here. She can draw that shit.
Also, what does the Stormfather know? We just forget what he says. It's fine.
And so they land, and sure enough, here's some of those. It says about the size of an axe hound with oily skin, moved on 6 legs, spindly like a crab's legs, but a bulbous body, and a head with only 1 slit for a mouth.
Super fun. I love these things.
Yeah,
I want them
really
at,
gross.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
want these at my birthday party. I think they'd be super fun to have around.
And we get we get kind of a repeat of what he says the first time when he hits one. He's like, it's like a water skin, but when you cut into it, it like bleeds smoke. So we saw Shalon and the crew fight against these things earlier. So Dalinar didn't see those though.
The comparison that I'm so ashamed I haven't made in the past was like, oh, just like darkness with a bit of luminous to them. It's like really sounds like the things from Attack the Block. Did you guys ever see Attack the Block?
No.
No.
One of the greatest like modern alien invasion movies.
That's John Boyega, right?
Yeah, very young John Boyega in that.
I was gonna say I googled it, and right up front I was like, hey, I've seen that guy.
Yeah. This is like before Star Wars and before he made it big, but he kills it in this. Like, and genuinely a very funny movie. So I think the main girl was the girl who became Doctor Who for a while, Jodie something.
Oh, Jodie Whittaker. Yeah, sure enough.
Yeah, no, excellent movie. Can't recommend it enough, listeners.
I when I googled that, I found a picture of these monsters, and I was like, okay, no, I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
that's weird. Yeah, they're kind of fuzzy in this one, but I can see what you mean. That there's a lot of similarity to the description. Ugh. And so Dalinar's like, hey, while we're on the subject, like, what is up with armor? How do we get that? And the Stormfather's like, speak the words. And Dalinar's like, okay, well, but which words? He goes, you will know, or you will not. Whatever. Very helpful as usual is the Stormfather.
Yeah, very on brand.
And now Dalinar realizes, like, he'd planned to, like, help her through the vision and talk to her and stuff, but because he was not specific about where he wanted to end up, he's left Queen Fen alone with the monsters and showing up way later, which it was not how he says, like, you can't be permanently hurt here because it's just a vision, but, like, I wonder if you can end up dead and wake up, like, in your bed or something. And he gets to the house that these people that they'd started in. Well, technically he started in a barn last time, but the house is right next to it. And he finds the woman, the mother, she's just dead in the house. Taffa was her name. And so whatever Fen did, it didn't involve saving this woman. And this is where he fights a few more of those creatures. But now he has some Stormlight. And so when they cut him and stuff, he can just heal up with the Stormlight. He's a Radiant now. But he sees outside, after he's fought off these monsters, there's a weird light. And when he comes out, there's a big old fire. He's like, I don't remember that before. What happened over there? And as he approaches, he hears Fen. She has somehow managed to organize the entire village into, like, they've got this big fire. They've got like a line of people defending against these creatures. They've put the kids back close to the fire, protecting them. And he's like, holy crap. Like, I spent all my time trying to save this one kid and her mom, and I still got us screwed over. How did she do this so quickly?
She's a badass.
Yeah, she is. And the other Radiant sees him coming up, and he's like, why aren't you helping anybody? And I was like, it's like, we'll have words about this when we get back. Go help the wounded. And so he finds Fen, and he walks up, and she's like, oh, now the Blackthorn's here. This is a real strange dream. And they have a whole thing where he's like, yeah, I thought they were dreams at first too, but I recognized, like, how weirdly different they seemed. Probably when you wake up, you'll be able to tell the difference between this and a normal dream.
You just skip, like, one of the villages is the Stormfather. It's like, hey, you want me to hit slow motion?
That was okay. Yeah, I think that may actually be after that line.
Is it?
Hold on. Now I gotta look. Oh no. It was right after she's like, now the Blackthorn himself shows up. Yeah. One of the villagers like, yeah, I can slow it down, and he goes, yes, please. The first time Stormfather actually offers up something helpful. He says, Dalinar says, if one vision isn't persuasive enough to help you understand, I get it. I'm dense enough that I didn't trust them for months. And he tells her what he did, when he came into this vision? And she goes, yeah, I let the woman die. I took the child and basically used her as bait so we could get away. Which, geez, that's cold. But it seems overall to have been the right move.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. It's just kind of like, forget it. I'm doing this.
Heavy choice for a dream.
Right, yeah. She seems to be saving the rest of the village because of that, so maybe it was a good call. And
that's what Taravanchi was talking about that time. Is like, yeah, you gotta choose which one to die so that everyone else can live, right?
yeah, kinda. Yeah.
That's what rulers do, according to Big T.
Big T.
Taravanchi is just such a long name.
It is, yeah.
Tea.
That's people, and to type it is also annoying. Like the first few times, you're like, "How the hell is this spelled?" I'm used to it now, but that's why people on like Reddit and stuff will often call him Mr. T or something like that, or King T.
King T's not bad. Mr. T's taken. You can't do that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And she's just like, "So what? If this is really a vision, and you're implying you have power of this, why did you bring me here?" And he goes, "Well, I just want to talk to you." Well, send me a storming letter. And to be fair, he tried.
No,
And-
we've literally been doing that for weeks.
And he's like, look what an amazing job you did here. You cannot tell me that you're just going to turn your back on the entire world. And she goes, I'm not turning my back on anything. I'm trying to help my kingdom, my people. And he just looks at her and she's like, fine. You want a real talk here? Fine. You really expect me to believe that the Storming Knights Radiant are back and that the Almighty chose you, a tyrant and a murderer, to lead them. And he's like he shows off some of his like glowy stormlight stuff. He's like, look, if you want, I can give you proof. I know it seems crazy, but the Radiants are back. And she's like, okay, well, fine. Let's say I can accept that. You are who God wants to lead us in this new thing. And he says, I have been commanded to unite. She goes, a mandate from God. The same argument the hierocracy made, the same argument the Sunmaker made. He said he had a calling from the Almighty too. So basically, she's suspicious of this. And I don't know about you guys, and I may not have had the thought the first time I read this, but by the second time I read this, I was just like, so the hierocracy, we heard before, they claimed that they were having visions from God, and they took over by saying, like, God told us to do this. And then when they were arrested and thrown down, it turned out that they weren't really having visions or anything. It was all bullshit. But this section made me wonder. We know that the Stormfather has sent these visions to people before Dalinar. At least Gavilar apparently was getting visions. Did he send visions to someone from the hierocracy? Did he send visions to the Sunmaker? Is that what started them on their path to try to take everything over?
Maybe.
I guess it's possible.
I can tell you that somebody asked Brandon about the Sunmaker, and he was like, no, he wasn't getting visions from the Stormfather. He just wanted to take stuff over.
Oh.
So just a random thought that this section gives me where she's comparing him to these other people. And I was like, it does sound similar to those. Maybe there's a reason for that, but maybe not.
You raised my hopes and dashed them quite expertly. Bravo, sir.
Yeah.
Oh, Tinny Tim.
And so she's like, do you really, like, I'm going to let the Blackthorn himself into my city? Like, this is insane. And he's like, well, what do you want me to do? Just stand aside while the whole world falls apart? Like, maybe I am a tyrant. Maybe you're right. But maybe we don't have any good options and I'm the only thing that we've got. You can risk being maybe conquered by us, or you can definitely fall to the Voidbringer assault by standing alone. Tell me to my face that trusting me is worse than the desolation. And she's like, she looks at him all thoughtfully, and she's like, where was this earlier? Like, why didn't you talk like this when we were communicating over the span read? And he's like, I was being diplomatic. You notice how I didn't add like dumbass to that? That was me being diplomatic.
Classic.
And then she's like, she says that talking over span read always feels like you're talking to a committee. That's what those letters made it sound like. Also, this is real creepy. But right here, can we like walk over somewhere else? And as they kind of go into it more, like she starts talking about all the stuff she's been hearing about how he's insane the last few months. Which, to be fair, yeah, a lot of stuff was happening, and it's understandable that some strange news might have gotten out. But even when the Everstorm proved that he wasn't crazy, because he was like, hey, a new storm is coming, she still wasn't quite ready to trust him, and he figures out eventually, he's like, you think that I'm working for them. That's what this is about. Like, you believe that, like, the Voidbringers are back, but you think I'm on their side and trying to trick you. And she's like, look, all I knew was that the person I was talking to over the span read, that did not sound like Dalinar Kholin. That was not who I expected to be talking to. But now she's willing to think about it. And then she's like, can I see the rest of what happens? I want to know what happens to that little girl. She walks back, and then the little girl like turns into the Stormfather and starts talking, like giving that message that Dalinar got before. So I guess we don't really know what happened to her. And Dalinar goes, man, we'll want to send her more of these. Like, we can only be served by more people knowing the truth the Almighty left behind. Can you bring in just one person, or can we like have more than one in a vision? And the Stormfather's like, I don't like being ordered around. And I was like, but he wasn't ordering you. He was asking.
Also, motherfucker, this was your idea.
Yeah, right? And Dalinar's like, okay, so what, you'd prefer the alternative? We just let Odium win because your pride is hurt by someone telling you what to do? And then he looks over and the Radiant is saying a very similar thing. Like, when the Radiant talked to Dalinar in his vision, he was like, you fight really well. If you want to learn how to fight and become a Radiant, come to us. And he tells Sven, like, your talent for leadership is impressive. I've rarely seen someone organize people as well as you did. Come to us if you want to learn true leadership. And when it ends, the Stormfather's like, she still doesn't trust you. And he says, yeah, she's wondering if I created this vision with like Voidbringer magic, but at least she doesn't think I'm crazy anymore. And I think she's going to listen to us. Like, she's going to let us convince her now. I know how to talk to her. She doesn't want polite words. She wants me to be myself, and I'm fairly certain that's something I can deliver. Which, isn't that nice? Where you find out that all you need to do is be yourself. That's a pretty easy thing.
I mean, that'll work for Fen because she's also kind of abrasive and just like, shut up and just tell it to me straight. Like, I don't think that's going to work for, say, Gorks and the Azish. But I liked it because it's kind of like, oh, that's what Adolin did with Iolai that time. Like,
That's
he's
true.
just like, just like shut up and let me yell at you for a minute, and that's what convinced her. It's like, all right, you have a point.
She was like, respect. You get a chair.
Yeah.
The next chapter 35 is First Into the Sky, and our epigraph says, you think yourself so clever, but my eyes are not those of some petty noble to be clouded by a false nose and some dirt on the cheeks. So whoever's writing this letter is just calling Hoyt out. Like, I know you're bullshit. I see you. And this is from Sigzil's perspective. And we get a new, like, chapter-topping picture. It's, like, the shoulder of a Bridge 4 jacket with the Bridge 4 patch on it. So I guess that is what our Bridge 4 symbol is. Makes sense. Somebody wakes Sigzil up by bumping his cot. And he was dreaming about being back home and taking the tests for governmental service. Which apparently in reality he did not do that well on. I also like the note that he's kind of pissed off that even after all this time in the military, the guys in Bridge 4 still can't line up properly. He's like, they wouldn't last a day back in Azir where queuing in an orderly way was a mark of national pride. I guess good for you guys. It is annoying when people don't know how to stand in line. I'll give you that.
Deeply.
And he starts shaving and nicks himself, and then the sphere he's using for light winks out as he heals. He's like, oh, right, Kaladin's back. Okay, well, that changes things. But whereas Kaladin was unable to get the Bridge 4 tattoo, like the Stormlight kept healing it and shooting the ink back out, and kept his slave brands, the people on Bridge 4, now that they can use Stormlight, their slave brands are being healed, but the Bridge 4 tattoo remains. It's like the opposite of what happened to Kaladin. It's a little bit strange. And then he walks into the common room and almost runs right into Lopin's face because Lopin is hanging upside down from the ceiling and trying to eat a bowl of porridge upside down. He's like, what are you doing, Lopin? Practicing. I've got to show them how good I am, Hooch. It's like with women, only it involves sticking yourself to the ceiling and learning not to spill food on the heads of people like you.
Hooch?
Yeah, right? Like he calls Kaladin Goncho, and apparently he calls Sigzil Hooch. All right.
Baffling. Okay. Is there like a Herdazian dictionary or something?
Right? Yeah. I think baffling is a word you could just use to apply to Lopin in general.
Yep, that's entirely fair.
Now I'm looking it up and see if there's ever an explanation of like what Hooch or Goncho means specifically. He's from Herdaz. There we go, Herdazian. No, the only definition given in here, Goncho, the term by which Lopin refers to Kaladin. Hooch, the term by which Lopin refers to Sigzil. So, all right, thanks.
Super.
Very helpful. And we find Lopin has completely regrown his arm. I think we knew that from another perspective. Like, Shallan was like, oh, he used to be a one-armed Herdazian. Now he's not anymore.
Man, could you imagine if Earless Jax had ever gotten a hold of some Stormlight if he hadn't died?
Oh, poor man. Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you have called him then?
Eared Jax.
Yeah.
No,
Or
I think we established there was already one of those.
or
yeah.
relobed Jack.
Eromancer Jack, because he magicked his ears back. So he tells a joke about, like, how do you get a two-armed Herdazian to do what you want? And I love Sigil's just like, if I knew that, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But you take away both of his spears, obviously. Ha ha ha. And he goes, remember that one for me, Hooch. I'll need lots and lots of new jokes. Also sleeves. Twice as many of those. Except on vests, then the same number. Just, all right, man. It even says in here, like, he refused to explain what Hooch meant, or why he only used it to refer to Sigil. And so Sigil slips out and goes down the hall to Kaladin's room. And so we found out Sigil being being the only guy who can read in any way. He uses runes or not runes. What do they call them? Glyphs. He's kind of been acting as the scribe for Bridge 4. Or the clerk, I'm sorry. Because Sigil's like, I mean, you really need a real scribe, not whatever I am. And he's like, oh, you're my clerk. Because in an actual military group, that like the other existing ones, the officers' wives would act as scribes and stuff. But none of these guys have those. Although that may be changing. Pete's not an officer, but the first thing we address is Pete is now officially betrothed to the woman he's been seeing. Ka, we met her at the bar once upon a time.
I was about to say that was the bartender or the waitress, yeah?
Yeah.
Cool. But unfortunately, Ka, really? One letter off our friend, the Inquisitor?
She's much nicer than that guy, probably. It's fine.
And that's what everyone says. And then all of a sudden you got nails in your eyes.
Yeah, if she shows up with nails in her eyes, we're going to have a problem.
Yep.
But he's like, oh, that's great. Maybe she can become our first scribe. And he's like, yeah, maybe. We don't actually know if she can read or not. But you mentioned that you were going to look into requisitioning housing for men with families. He's like, oh, yeah, that was before all that stuff happened. I should probably go back and do that, huh?
Yeah, now that you're done running around with the crab people, we need you to actually start doing your boss man duties.
Yeah, right. Do your job, man. Bissig is also close to being betrothed. So, there may be more married people coming up soon. And also, Punio, Lopin's cousin, he's already married. His wife drops off food for him. And Colin's like, I thought that was his sister. And it's like, yeah, he wanted to fit in, I think. He doesn't speak Alethi real well, so it was already like hard for him to fit in. That's some dedication to trying to fit in with the club. If you're like, I gotta go live with them. Just bring me some lunch, okay?
Yeah, that's
Yeah, wives like that.
And then Drahe is courting a man, and Colin's like, oh yeah, I did know that. That's Drew from the Quartermaster, right? And Sigil's a little uncomfortable with this. And it's like, for a minute you think like, oh, does Sigil have like an issue with like men being with other men? But no, his problem is like, well, he didn't fill out the proper forms for social reassignment so he could court a man, right? And then based on the look on Kaladin's face, he's like, oh, okay, Alethkar doesn't have those forms.
Yeah, we don't do that.
We don't have the gay application.
Yeah, this isn't the central bureaucracy there, Hermes. Chill out.
Sigil would fit in so well there.
Yeah. When I was 2, there was a tidal wave.
When I was 4, there was a hurricane.
No, but I was doing the Zoidberg one.
Oh.
Come on, Data. Get your facts straight.
Also, there's 4 different religions being represented in Bridge 4, which I'm never completely clear on, even through the conversation, why this is an issue. Haber follows the passions. And also, Dalinar keeps saying the Almighty is dead, so Sigil says, I feel responsible. And Calvin goes, for Dalinar? It's like, no, for the men of Bridge 4. And then he thinks he's having trouble explaining this. Like, what would Hoyd do? Okay, I got this. So everyone knows that Misham, the third moon, is the most clever and wily of the moons. Like, no preamble. He just launches into this, and Callan's like, okay, this is relevant. Why? And Sigil goes, because of a story. Hush. Please listen, sir. And so he tries to tell this story about the moon, the third moon being the cleverest, and she wants to escape the sky. So she tricked the Queen of Natan. It was a long time ago, so they were still around. I mean, they're still around now, but they were more around then. And the moon tricked her, and now that's why Natan people have blue skin. Does that make sense? I was like, I have no idea what you just said. And Callan is really not understanding. And Six was like, it's how my master did things. He'd tell a story when someone was confused or angry, and then it would make things better somehow. But it's not working.
Does Kaladin know that Sigzil was Hoyd's apprentice?
Yeah. Because Hoyd's, when he first meets Hoyd, he's like, send my apprentice the message that he's now a full world singer. And
oh, that's right.
And when Hoyd gives him the flute, he's like, oh, I'll give this to Sigzil. And Hoyd's like, no, I gave that to you. Then he lost the flute, though, so, whatever.
That's right. Kaladin's just be like, man, your master told the stories a bit differently. He didn't just rush through them and just go like, and then this happened, and that solved everything. Understand?
Yeah, you might need a little more training, my dude. Sigzil, I'm sorry to tell you. Maybe you need a flute. You should get yourself one of those.
If only we had one.
Too bad. And so Sigzil kind of tries to transition into look, the men don't have direction philosophically or morally, but also where do we stand in the army now that we're turning into radiance? What does that mean? And because apparently the Ardents won't even talk to us, partially because we were slaves and they didn't bother with the slaves before. But now we're turning into Knights Radiant, kind of, and Vorinism has an issue with the Knights Radiant, so... And Kaladin asks him, so you think you want to, guide the men, as a moral center or whatever? And Sigzil's like, well, somebody needs to. And Cal's like, well, I mean, that's fine, but, don't try to... Because the men respect you. They'll listen to you, but don't try to, put what you think is right onto them. Listen to what they want. And try to respect that. And he starts going off about how, well, Huio is going to the prostitutes, and that's wrong. And Cal's like, did your master teach you to be this judgmental? And Sigzil's like, I'm sorry. He used to say the same thing to me. I know. But then we have another problem entirely. Bridge 4 has lost several people. Maybe we need to look at recruiting some people. What if someone else in the army starts displaying Windrunner attitude or powers even? And so Colin's like, okay, you know what? Fine. We'll try to recruit some people. We'll need a test or something. I'll figure it out. And that's when Lynn shows up. And she's like, hey, I have a message for you. The quartermaster says that he's got your stuff ready. And Kaladin has already spotted what Dak has been pointing out for a couple of weeks. Lynn is hanging around Bridge 4 a lot. He's like, you're the one who's always helping my men, right? You're making excuses to hang out with Bridge 4. Not afraid of the lost radiance then? And she's like, dude, after what I saw, I'd rather be on your side than on the opposite side. And he goes, hey, Lynn, how would you like to join the Windrunners? And she's like, oh my gosh, that would be amazing. It's like, good. Sigzil, get her started with the ledgers and accounts.
Slap in the face. Not okay, dude.
Yeah. She's like, oh, you wanted a scribe. And he's like, well, yeah, you're a woman, right? Oof, dude, come on.
Yeah, that's the bit. That's the bit there.
Oh, Kaladin, he's done it again.
Just imagine Syl just tapping her foot in thin air next to him.
I feel like, yes, Syl should be here for this. Absolutely. Give him a little smack. And she's like, I mean, in the High Prince's vision, there are women Knights Radiant. And then, Shallan, I didn't join the Scouts because I want to sit around and look at ledgers. So if that's what you're offering, I'm going to have to pass. And then Kaladin thinks about it. He's like, hey, you know what? Well, we're going to try to recruit some people. If you want, we could give you an invitation. Yeah. For tryouts. And she's like, oh, I'm in. And she leaves all happy, that she's going to get her shot. And Sigzil's like, yeah, did your master teach you to be so insensitive? I have a suggestion, sir. Try understanding what people want out of life and respecting that instead of projecting what you think they should want.
That was so good.
Yeah. Throw it right back on him.
And Kaladin's like, shut up, Sigzil. I'm like, no. You don't get to be like that.
Yeah. I love you. Like, shut up. And then we find out that because he's like, oh, I'm sorry, sir. And Kaladin's like, you don't have to be this formal. And we find out from Sigzil's internal monologue that most of the bridge crew is, has this kind of formal view of this relationship with Kaladin. A few people like Teft and Rocked and Lopin, because Lopin's just weird, they could be more comfortable with Kaladin, but Moash was the one that was closest to him. And apparently Kaladin has not told the crew what Moash did, only that he removed himself from our fellowship, whatever that means.
My feelings on the guy aside, he tried to assassinate the king. That's not something you keep secret.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he might then have to divulge his involvement or divulge what he knew and then was going to let happen. And yeah, there's a whole big story there.
That's true.
Point. I didn't consider that.
I gotta say, I feel like you should tell them at least a little more, because you don't want them thinking like, oh, Moash, he just left. He's still cool. If Moash shows up, you want them to be like, no, screw you. Not thinking that he's still a friend.
You're goddamn right.
Yeah, fair point.
And then we get into the other thing that you guys brought up earlier, where it's like, okay, so we're not bodyguards anymore. What are we in this army? Like, are we still under Alethi command? Do we have to listen to King Elokar if he tells us to do a thing? Most of us were Alethi subjects even before this happened. That'd be Sigils from Azir Azir, and then Lopin's a Herdazian, but most of the people in here were Alethi. Like, where do we stand in Alethi society? You're officially a shard bearer in the court of Dalinar, so, and if we're not working for Alethkar, do we still get paid by Alethkar? How does any of this work? And Callan's like, crap. These are all really good questions, and I'm really glad somebody asked them, because I had not thought of this. And they come to a point where it's like, Sigil says, I feel like Lynn. I don't want to be standing around over a ledger when all of Bridge 4 starts flying. I want to be the first into the sky. And Callan's like, yeah, I think you're going to have to fight Lopin for that. But come on, that reminds me. And they get to the quartermaster, and there's a bunch of dudes standing around, and Sigil's like, why is it so busy in here? And it turns out that these are not just random dudes, these are guards, because what he has requisitioned from the quartermaster is the Royal Emerald Reserve, held for emergency grain soul casting. So it's like big old sacks of huge uncut emeralds, probably taken out of chasm fiends. And Callan's like, yeah, we're just borrowing them. We'll bring them back in the evening, although some of them won't have Stormlight in them, probably. And we'll need to check them out tomorrow and the day after that. And the quartermaster's like, you could buy a princedom for all this. Like, what on earth do you need them for? And Sigil figures it out. He's like, wow, we're going to practice being radiant. He's very excited. They're going to try to fly.
We're going to use the treasury to get high.
True facts. And then our last chapter, Hero, is another Dalinar flashback. This one 24 years ago. So wait, when was our last one? I want to keep track of how much time we're passing up here. Let's see. The Blackthorn Unleashed was 29 years ago. That's the one where he almost kills his brother and then does not. So we are 5 years along.
So he's been married to Evie for at least 5 years, maybe a little bit more.
Yeah, somewhere right around there. Because they were about to get married in that last one, I think.
Yeah.
She was calling him near husband. And so now they're just they're hanging out. They got their own they got a little home. There's a problem with the chimney and he's fixing it. And she is pregnant. And he's trying to, she sits down on the floor and he's like, hey, that can't be comfortable. You gotta, I want to put you somewhere comfortable. And she's like, hey, like my condition doesn't make me so frail that I'm going to break by sitting on the floor. It's fine. And they talk about the flame spren they see dancing around in there. She thinks that they're playing and Dalinar thinks that they're sparring with little swords. And she kind of calls him out saying, I've seen the way that you act when the king talks about little conflicts. You're always ready to go out and fight. Like, can you not just be happy now that you guys have won? You got a kingdom that you spent so many years and so much work trying to put together. It's like you're dead and you only come alive when you can fight. And then they kind of move away from that topic. And he's like, I always wondered, are the flame spren made of fire? And if they are, like, what does that mean for emotion spren? Or anger spren made of anger? Or glory spren? And she's like, yeah, that's a mystery, And he's like, do you not wonder about this stuff? You're like, why wonder about it? Eventually we'll know when we return to the one.
Yeah, I like this little bit because it's like, it is him focusing on something that isn't like combat. He is thinking about the world around him and trying to figure out his place in it in a way. Also, there was a nice little note there that he himself thought, man, my wife is a really sweet woman who deserves better than the way I treat her. It's like, okay, cool. We're seeing more of this self-conscious Dalinar start to come to the fore. I'm here for this.
Yeah. Agreed. Although, if you can recognize she deserves better than the way you treat her, the next step is then to treat her better. But
Yeah, but this is also a guy who we're celebrating. You didn't kill a kid, thank God. It's like, so,
yeah, fair.
what can we expect?
We take what we can get.
Yep.
And they're apparently pretty different in personality, even aside from he lives for fighting and she doesn't like it at all. Like, he's interested in, knowing things, and she's just like, about it. Just be cool, man. Enjoy what you have. And he says, do you think that men can change like the Spren? And she's like, yeah, obviously. I mean, even your own doctrine has like about transformation, about a man being soul cast from crass to glorious. And he's like, yeah, I don't know if that's working for me. And she goes, well, then petition the One. And she talks about the One, who we've heard about before, the eerie belief in the One. And he's kind of equating that to the Almighty. I don't know that he's taken enough time to understand how different her belief is from his. And so she's like, talk to the One. And he's like, oh, you mean like through the Ardents? She's like, no, silly, yourself. You can meet the One in person if you travel to the Valley. You can speak to the One or his avatar and be granted. And he's like, wait, like the Night Watcher? No, don't. That's not. Don't talk about that. Which that's new. I don't think we knew that the Eerie thought of the Night Watcher as an avatar or of the One, or maybe the One itself. I don't know.
Yeah, I certainly hadn't thought of it in that context before.
And he's like, man, sometimes like her weird pagan heritage pops up in the weirdest ways. Fortunately, she spoke of it no more. So they just hang out. She closes her eyes and hums softly, which I guess they're just sitting there quietly with her humming, whatever you enjoy. But that's when Gavilar shows up, knocks at the door, he gets showed in, and Gavilar says there's a problem with Rathalos, the Rift. They're demanding your shard blade back, saying that Tanalin's heir has returned and deserves the shard as you've never won it in a true contest. I don't know. I feel like that's a stretch. He beat that guy up pretty good and took his blade. But Gavilar's like, I know that is patently false, because when we fought at Rathalos all those years ago, you said you dealt with the heir. You did deal with the heir, did you not, Dalinar?
I mean, if you want to take him at his word, he said he dealt with him, not that he killed him.
Yeah, right? And Dalinar remembers this little kid crying and holding his father's blade, and he goes, he was a child, Gavilar. And Gavilar's like, damn it! Oh, crap! He's old enough to be a threat now. That was like a decade ago. The whole city's going to go into rebellion. And Dalinar's feeling a little... So he smiles about the idea that there's going to be a rebellion, and then he kind of like stifles that. He doesn't want his wife noticing that he's excited about this idea of fighting. But then he looks and sees how happy she is. And she's like, you spared the child.
Can't bring himself to be like, stifle meat pig. She's like, you stifled Dalinar.
I could see young Dalinar is like an Archie Bunker type in some ways, yeah. Stifle, Edith. She's so happy. You spared the child. And he's like, I mean, yeah, he could barely lift the blade. I gave him to his mother and told her to hide him. And she's so proud of him, like hugs him. And weirdly, he feels good about this.
He's like, man, like, I feel good that people know I didn't kill a child.
How messed up is that?
It feels good to have people not think of me as a child killer.
Amazing. Well, Alethi society is going to be like, man, he should have killed that kid. But his wife, she's on his side. Just, the Alethi are messed up. We all knew this.
Yeah. It's just very... Always do the opposite of what Bart says. That's the always do the opposite of what the Alethi society dictates.
Yeah, I can see that. And then in the end, Gavilar's like, you know what? A rebellion, we had to expect one sooner or later. This is we've got everyone moving in the same direction. There was going to be somebody who wanted to like break out. But no, don't get too excited, Dalinar. I'm not going to send the army. I want to do this with politics. We can't have force being our only method of maintaining unity, or Elhokar will spend his entire life putting out fires after I'm gone.
Well, that's a fortuitous statement.
Yeah, right. And the chapter ends with Dalinar being like, yep, sounds good, and then thinking to himself, it's not going to happen. Like, he's going to try to fix it with politics. It's not going to work. But we'll get there. He thinks. And that was the end of our section for today. So we're going to move into predicaments. For the next time, we are reading 2 chapters, 37 and 38. And 37 is called The Last Time We March. And 38 is called Broken People. So what do you guys think? Where are we going? What's going to happen? We're still, I mean, we're, in some ways, we're still level setting where we are in part 2 here, now that everyone's back in the tower. But we've gotten a couple of indications where we might be going. So what do you guys think?
Yeah, I don't know. I think like Dalinar will probably get a few more people on board in the visions. I think it would be good to have Navani and Yasna in that space, and probably Shallan. I think someone made a comment earlier about her sketching things like that. That sounds like it would be a good use of that tool, but I think it would be, given how quick they have to act, he really needs to get leaders on board. So I think there's a bit more momentum, I guess, to gain there to make that work. Kaladin, yeah, I mean, he's got to work out, because with Dalinar, where they actually sit in the big scheme of things. You know, we've already seen Elhokar. So I say to Dalinar, well, you know, you're the High King or whatever, but you have no authority in, you know, Elhokar. You're here in Urithiru. So do the Radiants become Urithiru citizens effectively? Or yeah, there's a few things to sort out in there. Flashbacks, we'll just see where they go. But specifics about where we're going, I don't really know. I think I need a few more chapters to sort of figure out exactly what's gonna go down here. What were the chapter titles again? Sorry.
Let's see. Chapter 37 is The Last Time We March, and chapter 38 is Broken People.
The last time we march. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe for preparing how they would handle, you know, the desolation. We've got Yasna back, who was talking to Hoyd, and they're like, kind of, this is all happening now, which is the first Everstorm coming on board. They know that they're coming every 9 days, or like they're pretty regular. I don't know, maybe it's too early for them to have hatched a plan of how to figure everything out. So yeah, I don't know, maybe it's discussions about, you know, if we don't act now, this will be the last time we march because there'll be no one left or something like that. And was it Broken People?
Broken People, yep.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of broken people around, isn't there? It could be referring to anything. There's a lot of villagers and things having a really rough time. So yeah, maybe it's a conversation with another leader or something. How can they help their people and come together? Yeah, I don't know. Not sure there. I think if Dalinar's successful in gaining more leaders coming forward, I don't know that that's going to make Taravangian particularly happy. He seems to have Dalinar kind of where he wants him at the moment, if what we've been talking about in the past is right. So it could be a bit of conflict there too.
That's true. I mean, I guess it could go either way. We had I think, was it Dax theory that Taravangian wants Dalinar to unite like the whole world so that then Taravangian can like knock him off the top and take over, like have Dalinar do the work for him. So in that case, he might want to get help if that's really what he's after. So yeah, I can see that going either way. But yeah, I mean, you're right that it's still, we're at a point where it's hard to put your finger on where things are going to head.
Yeah.
Oh, I will also mention, now that I'm noticing it, after the 2 chapters, there's an image that you guys can also look at before you go to the next chapter. It is the Vorin Hava, so the dress that like Vorin women wear that covers up one of their hands and stuff. It's a cool little image. So you guys can check that out too. But this section, we're going to have a couple of, in part 2, we've got Shallan and Dalinar, who we've seen them from their perspective a lot, but we also have Yasna and Bridge 4, who we got our first Bridge 4 perspective. So is there one of those two that you think is going to be more interesting? Because I think they may both be new for us in part 2.
I think I need a Yasna perspective to see what we're in for. Because we've sort of had that first Bridge 4 perspective, and I like that we might see into some heads we haven't seen into. I think that could be really interesting. But I'd love to know what's going on in Yasna's head. I don't know. They're both fascinating. You know, we have a very set image of Yasna from Shallan, and then sort of from everyone else around who loves her. And she's this woman that, you know, effectively Shallan is emulating in Radiant. So I think it would be interesting to see inside her head and be like, okay, are you like that? Or are you quite conflicted? Or are you like, what do you know as well? What do you know that we don't know? Like, I think I would be itching to get that information, but I think I would enjoy the Bridge 4 perspective changes more. Like, I'd love a rock perspective would be amazing to read, I think. It would be so much fun. And Teft as well. Would they give me information that I was craving? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I want to read all of it.
Fair. You know what? I'm gonna give you guys a slight spoiler here in that one of the 2 chapters that we're reading next does in fact start with a rock perspective.
Whoa.
Yes. Cool.
Oh man. The word count for airsick is about to go up.
Quite possibly, yep.
Yeah, I don't really know where we're going at this point. I feel like we've had a bit of a status quo reset now with Kaladin and Yasna back at the tower. I want to see more of I want to see more of like Yasna interacting with people. I get the sneaking feeling that even though Yasna was listed as a perspective character for this section, it might be like that time Navani was listed as a perspective character and we got like half a chapter out of her, and that was it. So I don't know I don't know how much we'll actually see inside Yasna's head, but it'll be good just to see other people interacting with her. Like I said, I really want to see her interactions with her family, with Elhokar and Navani and the rest. I want to see what Adolin and Yasna's relationship is like. Like, I don't know if Adolin's even ever mentioned Yasna much.
Yeah.
Or hell, if Renarin sees things, Yasna might think, oh, that's going to be useful. Hey, Renarin, let's hang out. And Renarin's like, we never hung out before. But rock chapter. I don't know. This might be a comedy bit where he's like looking for the finest ingredients or something. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know where our story is going at this point. It seems like Dalinar is just continuing to do what he's been doing, like talk to the leaders, but now he's doing it in the storm. So who knows? Like we're still it's very much still on the same train as before. Convince the other world leaders, get them to take this seriously. Will it be successful? I don't know, but I feel like it's going to take a hot minute. Yeah, beyond that, I don't really know. Like Kaladin just seems to be settling back into the groove. We don't know what Shallan is doing, although Broken People sounds like it could be a Shallan chapter. Yeah, I don't know. I got nothing really for this week.
Weirdly, I think I'm way too interested in the possibility of a chapter where Rock is out looking for the finest ingredients for his stew. Like, I would be on board for this story. Like that could be a whole short story, and I'm there for it.
It's like it's just a comedy bit where Rock is continually breaking into places in Urithiru he's not supposed to go and discovering the deep dark secrets of Urithiru. You got Yasna and Navani just following. It's like, oh my god, you found this thing that we've been looking for, and he's like, yeah, but it's not spicy enough. I'm going to the next room. And it's just like this for a chapter. He's finding all these, like he finds the honor blade cache, and he's like, well, these won't do as kitchen knives. What the fuck is this?
See, yes, I'm on board.
Yeah.
Write this story, Brandon. If you have not already, do it. Just do it. So, okay, separate question for you that also just occurred to me while you were talking, because it's related to something you said. But we talked about last time, Shallan and Yasna. Shallan's feeling a little stifled about having to go back into this relationship, and Yasna is just like expecting that they're in the same place they were before. So, how do you predict that this is going to go? Like these two personalities now have a potential conflict here. What do you think? What do you think they do?
Probably have communication breakdowns, and then Adolin has to go between them.
That would give us what you were asking for. Some Adolin Yasna.
Yeah. No, I don't know. Like maybe their friends will have conversations. Yeah, I don't know what to expect from their relationship at this point.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah. Sorry, I got nothing really.
No, you're fine. I was just curious if you had any thoughts on that. You're good.
I feel like a rock perspective is going to be just great. So I don't know, assuming we're seeing all these different perspectives from Bridge 4 members, right? We've got Sigzil, now we're going to have Rock apparently. What could we look forward to? I mean, maybe some more kind of interactions between Bridge 4, because I think up to this point, they've kind of been on the sidelines for a lot of this book, right? Because Kaladin's been gone. We've been focusing on Dalinar and Shallan and Kaladin away from everybody. Now the band is back together. And so instead of the action being completely on Kaladin, because I think he's got some stuff going on, we're going to see, more of what actually is going on in Bridge 4 and how that affects the story at large. And so maybe that's what this Rock chapter is, just kind of continuation, because the Sigil chapter is really like, there's a lot of internal monologue where we actually get development on Sigil, but it also is like skewed from, hey, he's got to go talk to Kaladin and get some stuff done. I would imagine Rock's also going to have some interactions with Kaladin, but it'd be more interesting if he had interactions with like Adolin or other characters that aren't as closely directly related to Bridge 4. I think that'd be a fun and interesting thing to see. And so whichever chapter that is, then I think that'd be good. As for whatever the other chapter, I don't know. I mean, we've got a lot to choose from, right? We haven't had a Yasna thing yet. That's from her perspective. Could be like Dax said, where it's like we don't actually get one from her perspective, but just like part of it or something. But either way, we have Yasna, we've got Dalinar, we've got Kaladin, we've got Shallan. And I think any of those people, that could be focused on. So I don't really know, like, it's kind of hard to tell because it's not the book doesn't go in a pattern of perspectives like, say, Elantris did, where we kind of knew, like, okay, this next chapter is going to be from this person's perspective. So it's kind of a toss-up of, like, who it's going to be, especially with how vague, like, a lot of the chapter titles are. But what I really want to see, let's go with that. So a predicament. I mean, I want to see more of, because Dalinar kind of, like, we talked about this a few weeks back. Like I was saying, Dalinar's trying to do this, like he's trying to unite these people in a way that is not playing to his strength, right? Diplomacy. And I think like that point was made even clearer when he takes Queen Fen into this vision. She's like, well, honestly, I thought I was talking to a committee, not you, because this isn't the person that like the way you were talking is not how I associate you. Right. And so it's like that I felt like I was being tricked or trapped or something because this is not what I expect from you. And I think what we're finding out as readers is like the Dalinar that we know in the books and that the High Princes know based on his more recent years of interaction with them is not the Dalinar that the rest of the world knows. And I think that's a big point of this book, which is why we keep having the flashbacks, right? The point of the book and the flashbacks are, hey, this guy that like destroyed like all these other kingdoms and put them under his boot along with his brother, that's how everybody remembers Dalinar outside of the Alethi kingdom. That's the Dalinar that everybody knows. So like it makes a little more sense now why all these kingdoms would be like, we don't want to mess with the Blackthorn. He's going to destroy us. Like he's just going to take us over and rule with an iron fist. That's what he does. That's his thing. Right? And so I'd be interested to know like what effect this change in direction has gone with the visions of like, is it actually going to win people over? Is it a tactic that's going to work? It's like it's taking the politics out of politics, right? Like he's been trying to do this all diplomatically and politically and stuff like that, but now it's like, okay, I just need to show them what I saw and see if we can figure this out and see if they can like believe like this is, we're doing this because it needs to be done because the world is ending essentially. So it is nice to see like that moving in a different direction, and so hopefully that'll continue in this next few chapters. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got.
So as somebody pointed out earlier, that definitely seems to work for Queen Fen. His like be himself approach. Do you think it's going to work as well with the other monarchs, or better than what he's been trying already? At least
I don't know. Like obviously, whatever he's been doing, all of these monarchs are vastly different. I think we kind of get that from what we've seen, but it really just depends on who he's speaking to. I think some of those avenues are going to be shut off to him no matter what. I think the thing that could help is when other people look around. So like, let's say they don't trust Dalinar and they don't trust the Alethi kingdom, right? If they look around and see like, oh, Queen Fen joined him. Well, that's weird. I kind of think Queen Fen, she's maybe a trustworthy source. Let me check in with her and see what the deal is, right? So it's like the more people he eventually gains to his cause, maybe that will kind of persuade some others.
Okay. I can see that, yeah. People, apparently everyone's been hearing these rumors about Dalinar for months, that he's, completely insane or whatever. So having somebody that they do trust side with him. And who knows how the world at large sees Taravangian, I guess. We don't have that much information on that. But yeah, that's a good point. That could make a big difference for him. All right, y'all. Let's do some things. Let me see if we have any new patrons. It looks like we have one new patron since Joe was last here. So let's do that real quick, and then we'll do some emails.
Nice.
Our new patron at the ska level is Kristen B.
Kristen B, you are a archivist.
Okay. Thank you, Kristen, and everyone else who is on our Patreon. You guys are awesome. We have a few emails, a couple that we've been saving for when Joe gets back, and one that I read and then was like, oh, this person had a review. I should have waited for Joe before he got the review. So this is a person who gave us a 5-star review on Spotify. I won't read their whole email again, but their name, Joe, is Snot Ninja.
Snot Ninja. With a name like Snot Ninja, you gotta be a smoker.
Very nice. Very nice. Thank you, Snot Ninja, for your review on Spotify. Remember, if anyone wants to leave us a 5-star review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast, you can send us a screenshot of it at our email address, our email address, thesanderlanche@gmail.com, and Joe will jump you into the misting crew.
You know, our email address, www.
Yeah, right, as all email addresses start. Or if you want to join our Patreon, he will assign you a faring power, and if you do both, you could be a twinborn like Wax and Wayne. But we got a couple more emails that I wanted to get to here. The first one is from Fidlip, and Fidlip says a short follow-up is the name of this. Hello again, guys. I finished my thesis some time back, so I decided to reward myself with your Patreon content. I've swept through everything, and I've enjoyed you guys, mostly Data, tremendously. And also remembered how much I like Brandon's new books. You will probably base your reading order on your feelings about staying on Roshar for the 4th book in a row, but in my opinion, the 3 secret projects fit very well in between Stormlights 3, 4, and 5, with the last being After Wind and Truth, even if I cannot wait for you to read Rhythm of War. I wanted to write a follow-up email after Joe gave me a faring power to see if he remembers my hatred for extreme temperatures and my craving to be a fire soul. Just to be clear, I don't blame you for not remembering. It has been, checks notes, 3 months since my email, and this was in May, so it's been another month since then. Wow, time flies. Back to my powers. You gave me a tough combo, but I'm sure I will be able to use being able to hide Alamancers while breathing a lot. Okay, so you gave Fidlip, I guess, Smoker and Gasper. Is that the one where you can breathe? Yeah.
Yes.
Sounds right.
Gasper, yes.
Maybe I can get a team of Mistings from the Discord and we can sneak up on a secret Irie base in the Mariana Trench. Or maybe if I store up all of my breath, it will give my brain mega amounts of oxygen. Probably does not work this way. That's what I came up with after like 10 minutes.
Yeah, well, that's something for you guys, you fans on the Discord to do. You like collaborate amongst yourselves your misting powers, and then play the Mistborn role-playing game or whatever it is using the powers Joe gave you.
That would be amazing if ever. Yeah, you have to be a twinborn with the randomly assigned powers that Joe is giving you. I also won our little race of me reading all the Cosmere versus you guys reading Words of Radiance. It may have been a race only from my perspective, since you were kind of doing the opposite of racing, but I will take it as a win for me. You talked about There's Always Another Podcast having a whole segment for casting at the end. I did mention that, yes. I'm currently listening to them reading Elantris, and it's fun to listen to them each episode complain about 10 new characters being added. Elantris sure throws a lot of new characters at the beginning, huh?
Oh no, the self-imposed challenge they put on themselves turned out to be challenging.
Yeah, for Elantris. And it's a whole thing when you're doing casting as you're meeting the characters, because it's not always clear who's going to be a big character and who's going to be like appear one time and never heard from again.
Yeah.
So
maybe that's a game they should play like at the end of the book.
Yeah.
No, it's fun when they do it right off the cuff, because then they'll read a few more chapters and realize they wasted like this actor on a role that is not suited for them in the slightest.
That guy died the next chapter.
It's like, man, Willem Dafoe's gone already.
See, that's what makes it fun. I applaud that. But also, can you imagine they pick, we cast this role with such and such person, and then a couple of chapters later they get a physical description and realize, we fucked up.
Yeah, are they allowed to change it?
Yes, they do change. And one of the guys only casts, I think his criteria is if they have a line and a physical description. Otherwise, he will not cast them.
Okay, fair enough. So you can't just go Christopher Walken for everyone.
Yeah, right. But it can be fun. I'm not nearly as into casting as they are, so that may be why they started their own. They're like, we want to talk about this. We want to talk about who's casting for all this, and you guys aren't doing that on these other podcasts. That'll be our niche. So good for them for finding a niche. That's
that's part of their fun. That's part of their running gag. That's great. I applaud that.
That's all for this email. Just wanted to catch up. Yes, it's like 16 times shorter than the last one. I was trying hard not to ramble about our favorite tree conspiracy theorists this time. Although I do have a considerably larger amount of space for my writings. I love what you're doing. Keep it up. Wasing to the time of next. From Philip. Thank you for your email. It's always fun. So the next email, we've only got a couple left, and this one's pretty short. They're both pretty short. So we'll do these last two, and then we'll have cleared out our mailbox. So this person's the title of this email is Joe's, and then a book we haven't read yet, Prediction. Hi, Data. Big fan of the podcast. So basically, Joe made a prediction that this person feels is relevant to a book we haven't read yet. So it's going to be hard for me to read this and try to avoid stepping on anything, but I'm going to do it.
Okay.
Big fan.
Self-bleep.
Yeah. Big fan of the podcast. I'm starting the Mistborn saga and want to take a slower pace since I've read through all the Stormlight books and won't have anything new for a while. I fell in love with the Cosmere and can't wait for the newbies to get more exposed to Cosmere stuff and hear volcano theories. Love what you guys are doing. So happy I have plenty of hours to listen. Can't wait to catch up with you. Keep up the great stuff. Now, not sure if you've read this book that we have not read yet. So I will give this prediction / jokes from space. Not sure if it's already been stated, but I wanted to share my appreciation and give you guys a blast to the past with Joe's prediction. And so Joe made a prediction / joke about something in a very early episode. And this person calls out that in a future book, that thing kind of happens.
Which episode did Joe make this call?
I was wondering if I should say that, because then you might go out and, yeah, sure, why not? It was
okay. No. If you don't want to be too specific, what book were we reading when he made the prediction?
I don't even understand what's going on right now.
So I'll give you the episode. It's fine. You this person was listening to episode 42, and Joe made some predicament that this person feels kind of comes true in a future book that we haven't read yet. So
okay,
was that 42? Is that Well of Ascension or Hero Ages?
That would have been. Hold on, I think it's probably Well of Ascension, but let me check real quick. Final Empire was
that's
18
the Wayback
episodes.
Machine.
No, it would have been Hero Ages. Yeah.
So but that's funny then, because we were doing those before the secret projects were a thing.
Yep.
Yeah,
It's true.
So Joe made a prediction that came true about a book that hadn't been written yet.
Good job, Joe.
hey, look at me. I'm a guy that did something, but I don't know what it is.
Did a thing. I don't know what thing I did, but I did.
I did.
Congrats, Joe.
If you ever, if you ever doubt my my future seeing powers, now you know. It was timeline impossible for me to have read ahead.
Although, speaking of secret projects, I'm going to jump back for a second to that other email that we read that talked about, like, they felt that the secret project slotted in really well between Stormlight books 3, 4, and 5. It is. I've yet to make a decision, but secret project, one of the secret projects, they're not numbered. I was about to say secret project number this, but they're not really numbered. They're just one of the secret projects. A story point changes your view on it a little bit, depending on whether you read it when it came out, before Stormlight 5, or after Stormlight 5, which I think Brandon has even said, like, he thinks it's best to wait till after Stormlight 5. But anyway, so I haven't decided for sure if when we get to that point, after Stormlight 4, if I will be like, we need to go read this secret project now, because I feel like that's a better way to do it, or if I'm going to be like, no, we should wait till after. But for everyone out there, and I've gotten that question a couple of times in various places, that is something I'm thinking about. I have not decided on that one yet.
That's got to be either Yumi or the Sunlit Man, because you were all set to do Tress after Words of Radiance. So
it's true. I said that we might do Tress after Words of Radiance. Yep, you're narrowing it down. See, yeah, no, I won't go. We won't go any deeper into that. But so yes, haven't decided yet. And once again, when we get to the end of this book, we will face a choice of whether to go straight into the next Stormlight or take a break, and then we'll see what happens at that point. It's funny because, speaking of There's Always Another Podcast, I was listening to them this week, and they read Words of Radiance, finished not too far off of when we did, I guess, and then they took a break, and now they're reading Shadows of Self. And they were talking.
Are they doing published order?
They're doing not 100% published order, but like closer to published order than we did, for sure. I think that they're like, these Stormlight books are really big. We want to kind of break them up with the shorter, more pithy little stories. I think. But anyway, they were talking about, they just this week put out their first episode of Shadows of Self, which they do like a pre-book episode where they read the back of the book and look at the map and the dedication, and then they talk about what they're expecting from that book. So they slow down a little bit more than us. But they were like, man, I can't imagine going like having read Words of Radiance and then moving right into another giant Stormlight book. And then there was a very like fourth wall breaking look at the camera, like, yeah, what kind of crazy podcast would do something like that? And so, I think we were getting called out a little bit, so I had to call them out in return. One of the guys are like, yeah, you'd have to be, who would do something like that? You're our enemy if you're doing, it was like a whole thing. But,
what did we do that they're, what? Wait, why are we enemies now?
we went straight into Oathbringer after, well, no, we didn't go straight into Oathbringer, we did Edge Dancer.
That's true, we did do Edge Dancer. But we stayed in Stormlight World, I guess, as opposed to jumping somewhere else.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, we're fine.
Yeah. But
continuity. Boom.
It seemed like a good moment.
What's that bit from today? The episode today when Sigil and Kaladin are having a chat about guiding people but being respectful about what they want to do. Be respectful, guys.
Well, they haven't gotten there yet, so they don't know better, you know.
Well, like, is it Justin is their guy who, like, he's their you who has read the books and guides them. He listens. We know that.
That's true. Hi, Justin. He sent us an email one time.
Yeah, he was very excited that I read Animorphs.
Yeah, they're big fans of Animorphs over there.
Yeah. Like, how much of them have you listened to? Because like I am intrigued by the things that we've talked about that they do, and it's like I'd be interested in listening, but I don't want to set myself up for spoilers.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like,
they do a different order to us. Am I gonna?
Yeah,
what's gonna happen?
They do a different order, but also other podcasts take a different look, a different view on some sort of spoilers than I do specifically, which is why most of the time I've been like, don't even if like another podcast is starting with Mistborn: The Final Empire, I don't want you guys listening to that because what they consider a spoiler for something in the future might be different from what I consider a spoiler. Like that podcast specifically. Yeah. I've like early on in Mistborn, they made some jokes about Stormlight that you guys might get now, and it could potentially be spoiled by, when nobody on their show would have a hope of getting that because they were just on the first
right.
book. I probably did the same thing. I'm sure that I've made jokes that somebody who had what was it? Somebody recently in an email or something called out a specific joke I made that was like, where I was like, oh, I thought you said this. That's a different book, because it was like a Stormlight thing, and you guys didn't get it, but somebody else could have. But also some other, and I listened to several other Cosmere podcasts. I think I've listened to all of There's Always Another Podcast and most of Following Noadon and a few other ones that are out there. There's some fun stuff out there, but
yeah, the hard line to walk.
One example I will give you is very early on, like in the first Mistborn trilogy, I think they mentioned that somewhere in the Cosmere there was a group of 3 people that Brandon had said they would make a perfect like throuple. Like this would be the best candidate for that, except that one of them is way too uptight to be into that idea. And so that proceeds through the whole show. People are now on the lookout for that. Like, is this the group that could be? Is that the group? And I feel like that changes your experience of it, even without, you could say that's not actually a spoiler at all, because
yeah, like it doesn't go into specifics at all, but yeah. It means like you are looking for something that may not necessarily be in that particular book. Yeah,
it changes how you're viewing the thing, how you're seeing the thing. And I want to avoid outside influences changing your view on it as much as we can, basically.
Yeah, so, fair enough.
Although by the time we finish Stormlight, at that point, it may be like, yeah, go ahead now. They can't spoil anything for you anymore. So someday we'll get there. One last email. Let's do that and we can wrap up, y'all. This one is from Zach. And it says, the title is Mistborn WOA, so Well of Ascension. Hi, my name is Zach. I was just introduced to your podcast by my brother, and of course I started from the beginning. Sidebar, good place to start. I'm up to Well of Ascension, and probably won't know if you respond to this email for a few more months. I listen at 2 times speed. I'm up to Words of Radiance for my personal reading of the Cosmere. Can't wait to catch up to you, or in my perspective, for you guys to catch up to me. Love the nerdiness and the music, even at 2 times speed, from Zach. So
I don't recommend listening to us at 2 times speed. Just, I think I've said that before. I don't recommend that.
A lot of people like listening to podcasts at 2 times speed. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of it, but if that was what works for you, whatever.
Well, I just feel like sometimes I talk really fast and, If you got me at 2 times speed, you may not be able to understand what I'm saying. Like right now, I'm talking really fast. Can you understand me right now? If you're listening at 2 times, yeah, if you're listening at 2 times speed right now, you're really in for some trouble. That's all I'm saying.
For me,
You're gonna have a bad time.
For me, I feel like anytime there's like comedy of some kind going on, which we do, I would say regularly. We're cracking jokes fairly regularly.
Yeah.
Timing can be everything with comedy, and so I feel like it's going to fall flat a lot of the times if you're not listening at the speed that it was done at. But maybe that's everyone has their own experience of it. So
It's true.
Whatever floats your boat.
Look at you. It's a 2-day trip. That joke's all about timing too.
That once again clears out our email box. So if anyone else wants to send us an email, the address is thesanderlanche@gmail.com. Find us on Instagram, and I keep wanting to say Twitter, but I'm not going to say it. Facebook and Blue Sky, and of course Patreon, where I mentioned earlier, if you join our Patreon, we'll give you Joe will assign you a. Oh geez, that was a really loud car.
Motorcycle car.
Yeah.
What will I do?
If you join our Patreon, Joe will assign you a fairing power, and you can listen to mostly me go on at length as I read Brandon's stuff for the first time. Right now, I'm still doing my reactions to Wind and Truth. I am, I think, more than 2/3 of the way, maybe more than 3/4 of the way into that book at this point. I think this week, chapters 94 through 96 went up. So if you're interested in that, my reactions to what is it? Wind and Truth, Long Chills and Case Doe. What other books did it? All of the Secret Projects, I think. My reactions to reading those for the first time. The very first one I did was The Lost Metal, also on there. And the very first one I did was Bastille versus the Evil Librarians, which Alcatraz is not his most popular series with our listening base, I don't think. And that's the 5th book in a 5-book series. So also maybe not what people would want to jump into first, but I like it. So check that out. Check out our Patreon if you're interested in hearing all of that stuff. But thank you to our patrons, to our emailers, to people on our Discord. If you want to join our Discord, there's a link on our website, www.thesanderlanche.com. Thank you to everyone showing up and just listening to us talk about this stuff every week. We appreciate you. Remember, we're doing 2 chapters for next time, chapters 37 and 38. So if you're reading along, read those 2 chapters. Music by Miracle of Sound, and Wuzzing to the Time of Next. Colo, T.S. Fasher. Crabs ahoy!
Coronas wide, supernovas die, fractured in the fateful fall of man. Feel the heart raging of a strength unseen. Unity will bring the upper hand. So look to the break of dawn, to the break of dawn.